Ireland is full of ghost stories, and one of the most famous of them all is the story of a ghost who returned to the living world with the sole intention of righting a wrong. What makes this ghost story so famous and memorable is because James Haddock was acknowledged and celebrated by the Bishop of the time, Dr. Jeremy Taylor. This gave the story a very strong foundation to be passed down through the years as an Irish ghost story. James Haddock was a farmer who lived outside of Belfast. James died in the year 1657, but after his death, his spirit had returned to the land of the living to avenge those who did him wrong. James Haddock had made a will that those who should inherit his manor house and farm were his wife Arminel. His young son John Haddock was to receive the rest of it once he reached the age of 21. Mr. Davis was the name of the executor of James's will. Davis married James's wife Arminel a few years after James's death. It was then was the start of the reason for James's spirit to start his haunting, as after James's death, Mr. Davis changed James's will where he put his own son as the beneficiary instead of John Haddock, who was the rightful heir. Davis would have got his own way only for the haunting of James Haddock. It started one night during September. James's friend Francis Taverner was on his way home to Hilborough. Nothing was out of the ordinary until suddenly his horse stopped on the Drumbridge near Brumbeg. Taverner wondered what was wrong, but didn't think much of it, so just got off his horse and led him across the bridge. Suddenly he got a start when he saw a figure in a white coat appear right in front of him. Francis couldn't believe his eyes because the white figure in front of him looked exactly like his friend James Haddock, who had passed away 5 years before. Francis was shocked to the core when the ghostly figure begged him to make sure his son was the rightful owner of the land that was due to him. Francis refused and jumped on his horse and raced away like a racehorse. Francis heard a very strong wind and screeches almost like a banshee when all of this was happening. Francis was happy to arrive home, and as soon as he did, he fell down on his knees and prayed to God to protect him from whatever he just saw. The next night, Francis still wasn't over the shock of seeing his friend's ghost when he suddenly saw him again. As he was sitting by the fire with his wife, he was disappointed his wife could not see the ghost, and wondered why. James Haddock begged and pleaded with Francis that he has to go to his wife to persuade her to make sure his son gets what is due to him and what is rightfully his. He begged for him to make sure justice was done and to right the wrong. Francis once again refused to offer any help, and due to it, he was visited by James Haddock's ghost every single night for a month. Francis was in a very bad place and knew he had to get away from it all, so he fled to Belfast. But to his horror, the ghost had followed him. He didn't know what to do. The ghost was getting more and more aggressive and was now demanding Francis go back to Arminel and punish her in the worst way for her terrible treatment of their son John. Francis was shocked and scared more than ever, as the ghost warned him that if he didn't do what he was told, there would be extreme measures taken. Francis Taverner knew he had to confide in someone and couldn't think of anyone else to go to for help besides his local chaplain. Francis explained the whole story from the very first time he saw the ghost on the bridge to the night before. When the chaplain was told not long after he had the whole story, he then went to visit Dr. Lewis Downes, who was the vicar of Belfast at the time. The three men went to see Davis to explain the ghost's message and demand. Davis laughed at the men as if he was just told a very funny joke. He refused to make any change to the will and refused to give up any land. After none of what was done so far worked, the ghost of James Haddock had told Francis Taverner to take the matter to court. Francis knew that this would be farcical because 1, they would laugh at the idea of a ghost, and 2, there was no witness. The ghost must have known Francis's worry, as he said, "Don't worry about them not believing you, for I will appear myself in the court. When you are the judge or whoever calls upon me, I shall appear." The court was held in Carrickfergus, and it was under the title "The Court Case to Return the Estate to John Haddock." The opposing counsel mocked and jeered the idea and began to call for James's ghost to appear. He started shouting in a mocking tone, "James Haddock! James Haddock! James Haddock!" On the third mention of James's name, he received a ghostly, creepy, out-of-this-world response. Reports circulated that then, in that very moment, there was a huge clap of thunder, and the courtroom shook as if there was an earthquake. And to make matters worse, a hand appeared in the witness box, and a voice from beyond this world asked, "Is this enough?" After that, the court case was settled almost immediately. Davis left the courthouse, where crowds of onlookers shouted abuse at him. He just wanted to go home, but he never did get home. The reason Davis never reached home is because as he was riding home, he was thrown violently from his horse and broke his neck. It was after this day Francis Taverner never saw the ghost of James Haddock again. The tale of the ghost and everything that came with it was the talk of the town and reached all corners of Ireland. It was then that Bishop Jeremy Taylor put it in writing that the ghost was true. The bishop said that James Haddock's ghost was the only ghost who ever answered a summons in the court of law. James Haddock was buried in Drunbeg Parish church courtyard in the 17th century. It is said throughout history that his tombstone will never ever stand up straight. Even when it is moved upright, it just falls over. To this day, it lies in moss and dirt. Is the reason the tombstone doesn't stand upright a message from James? Is he trying to tell us something?
Of all the money that e'er I spent it in good company, and of all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for
Susie and Jane were twins and living in LA. Susie was very busy with her YouTube channel, where she spoke about different wellness tips and makeup tutorials. Jane was checking through her Instagram while Susie was speaking into the camera, doing a live stream. She said, "Hello guys, welcome to my live stream, and today I'm going to be giving ye great wellness tips on how to relax and get a better night's sleep. And having a great night's sleep not only adds to your physical well-being, but your mental well-being also. And I will also be sharing some delicious vegan recipes with ye that are also gluten-free." The live stream took about an hour, and afterwards Susie checked her emails and answered as many comments as she could. Susie was really looking forward to sign a new endorsement deal which would bring her in millions. She had a secret idea with her and her partners who were teaming with her. Everything was going great until Jane went missing. Susie explained to her partners that she would continue with her Secrets to Success idea in a few weeks, but right now she had to concentrate on getting her sister back. Susie spoke into the camera during a live stream. "Hi everyone, I have some very sad news for you today. My twin sister Jane has gone missing. If anyone knows anything about her whereabouts, please contact me or your local police station." The views were going up and up during the stream, and news of Jane's disappearance spread like wildfire. Soon it was front page news, and on almost every news station. Susie couldn't believe that the team she was partnering with were putting so much pressure on her. When she was all alone in her house, she walked down to her basement and turned the light on. She took the gag off her twin sister and put a gun to her head and said, "Okay, Susie, you either give me that secret idea you have that you got that $1 million deal, or I'm going to shoot you in your head and tell them I have another idea. I am sick and tired of all your stupid videos of you flaunting yourself and acting like you know it all. Now I'm in your place, which proves what I always thought but never told you. I'm just as good as you, and as a matter of fact, I'm much better than you." Suddenly there was a noise at the stairs. Jane turned around. A guy was standing holding a gun and said, "You bitch, I knew you were crazy from your videos, and now look at you, holding your own twin sister at gunpoint." The man, who was a stalker of Susie for months, shot Jane in her head, thinking it was Susie, and untied Susie, thinking it was Jane. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content.
My name is Jake. I just arrived in my late grandfather's cabin. I usually stay here during the summer. I was ready to have a relaxing weekend when I heard a knock on the door. It was an elderly man who introduced himself as Sam. He looked aggressive. "Hello Sam, can I help you with something?" He spoke. "Something very bad happened in this cabin." I asked him, "What do you mean? What happened in this cabin?" He stepped into the cabin and I got a start, as I hadn't invited him in. He spoke in a very weird tone. "Oh, something very bad indeed. There was a man murdered in this cabin." I was shocked with the accusation he was making, but more shocked wondering was it true. I asked him, did he want some tea, but he declined. He walked out of the cabin, but before he shut the door, I said, "Wait, who was murdered in this cabin, and when?" He pointed down to the basement door and said, "Down there you'll find the body." As soon as the door was shut, I ran to the door and put the basement light on and walked down the stairs. I saw a body lying in blood and jumped in shock. My heart started thumping in my chest and I felt like getting sick. I took out my phone right away and rang 911 and gave the address. A few minutes later, a police officer arrived. The police officer found a VHS next to a TV by the body. It had "Watch Me" written on it. He put it into the VCR and it played. It showed my grandfather having an argument with someone, but the sound wasn't on, so you could just tell he was arguing by his body language. He backed away next to a mirror and was shot. Blood splattered all over the mirror. The cop looked in shock as he saw the figure who shot him come into the screen. I started talking to the strange man called Sam as he walked down the stairs, shouting at me. I shouted, "Stop! Stop shouting at me!" The cop stared at me in bewilderment and said, "Who are you talking to? Nobody is here." He looked around. I watched the TV screen as I came into view after killing my grandfather. The cop happened to turn around and see me in the screen with a gun in my hand. I spoke in Sam's voice. "I told you something bad happened," as I grabbed the knife from my pocket and stabbed the cop. Over and over and over, I ejected the VHS from the machine and stepped on it over and over, then walked up from the basement. I sat down wondering what happened, and what did that weird guy Sam call for. Then I had a conversation with Sam.